Hey YouTube, what's up? This is Ben from shouldIGetIt.com. In this video, I'm going to be walking you guys through the behind the scenes of the Porsche GT3 video, which I did last week on the channel of Jonathan Golden's blue wrapped Porsche GT3. If you haven't seen it, here's a sneak peek. And if you want to see that whole video, the description has the link to that video below. But I want to walk you through some tips and things that I learned while filming this. Now, mostly I filmed it to test out the E-Image Horizon 1 gimbal. This is my first ever DSLR gimbal. I'm pretty stoked on it. And I was filming with the Canon SL2 and the 10 to 18 millimeter lens, which I'm filming on right now. So you can see this is at 18 millimeters. This is at 10, and I filmed kind of right in the middle. Now, before we get into that, I want to say thank you to my parents for getting me this painting as a housewarming gift. Hey Google, turn on painting light. And now we have a little bit of light on that. But I'm going to be walking you guys through these tips. You don't need a gimbal in order to pull off a video like this. The gimbal did make it much easier, and you'll see it in a lot of the behind the scenes footage here. But keep in mind, even if you don't have a camera, if you have a phone, you can get a cheaper 3-axis stabilizing gimbal for your phone on Amazon. I think this one's like 150 bucks. I'll have it linked down below, and you can get some really awesome footage. So the first note that I took down in here is if you're using a DSLR, use a polarizer filter. So this is a polarizer right here. It's for this lens, and you guys can see that it just screws right on, and it does two things. One, it gets rid of reflections, so you guys can see in this footage right here from one of my previous shoots, as I turn the polarizer filter in front of the lens, what it does is it removes the reflections from the front windshield glass and moves it around on the body. I have more videos of this on my channel, but just know polarizer filter is huge for getting rid of reflections on cars. And the other thing is, since it darkens the image a little bit, as you guys could see again right here, the nice thing is you can shoot with a shallower depth of field even when it's bright and sunny outside, so you can still shoot at like f2.8 or even 1.8 depending on the lens that you're filming with, and not have too much light going into your camera, because ISO 100 is usually the lowest ISO that our cameras can go to. Now the other tip that I have is shoot wide. So as you guys can see, when you have this crop shot, this is all you have, right? But instead what I did is I shot the video pretty wide, and I made the sequence 1080p, so for some clips I could punch in just like I did right now and virtually zoom in, have it be a little bit closer, still not lose that much quality. And also because I was still using the stabilizer in Final Cut Pro 10, the software stabilizer, then it usually crops in a little bit, and the more you have in your shot, the better it's going to turn out. So I film a little bit wider at 1080p. I make it into a 720p sequence, and that is why the video is in 720p. There was a comment on that video, and I hope this explains that. If I had a 4K camera, I would film in 4K at 60 frames per second, and then I would bring the video down to 1080p. My next tip, film in reverse. So instead of trying to start back here and walk up to the car and make sure you get it in focus, what you can do is set your focus using live view, set your shot exactly where you want it with the position of the gimbal, and start filming there. And then what you can do is simply walk backwards away from the car, whether it be a wide shot or a close-up, and that way you can get the perfect focus every time. So you guys could see in that B-roll, I was just walking away from the car, and all I did was put that footage into Final Cut, play it in slow motion and reverse, and then you get a really clean, smooth-looking shot where it looks like you nailed the focus perfectly. And this is gorgeous when you do it with a shallow depth of field. Also, you can film from below, so instead of having to squat down and film like this for the low parts of the car, what's nice is if you have a gimbal, you can simply go like that, and you can even use this small tripod that it comes with to extend and just walk up to the car and walk back like so. And that way you can also get the shots from below without having to lean that far down. With the Nikon D750, if I were using that, I can tilt the screen up. If you have a Canon camera or any camera that has a tilting screen, like this Canon I'm filming on right now has the flip out screen, which is really nice. And that way you can film from almost any angle and get the shot you want without having to go down low and be uncomfortable. So keep in mind you can flip the gimbal upside down, and that is a huge time saver. Now, speaking of doing that, when you do this for a while, especially with one hand and a hefty camera setup, your wrist is going to hurt. So make sure you take care of yourself, take breaks, wear a hat, wear sunscreen. I know I sound like your mother right now, but it's very important. And bring water and or Gatorade for yourself and your client. It is a huge deal when you have someone, especially if you're getting paid, you have someone waiting to have footage of their car filmed and they're dying in the heat. They can't sit in their car with the AC on. They're probably not going to sit in your car and just watch you with the AC on, although you could offer it. So make sure you have something to keep both of you guys hydrated. Now, the other thing, sometimes you will have a dirty car to film, and that is fine. You'll see the GT3 is fairly dirty. This one goes to the track all the time. I totally understand it. And it lives a proper good GT3 race car life, especially with that glorious GMG exhaust. But for the detail shots, clean the car, because when you get really close, you will see the little splatters on the paint, and you will see it on like the hood and the carbon. So we even incorporated that cleaning shot into the video, and I think it looked really good. So keep in mind, you can also kind of film behind the scenes like that cleaning shot and throw it into your final product, and sometimes it'll look really good. Also, as with any video filming, film clips longer than you need. So don't just film and be like, okay, I need footage of the wheel and just footage of the wheel. Film the wheel and then keep filming for about 10 seconds and transition away from it. And that way you can have the footage that you need to make whatever transition work, like a cross dissolve, or if you have some sort of fancy transition like this one right here, you can make it work. You always need more footage. And for that, make sure to film multiple times as well. Sometimes it'll be a little bit out of focus. Sometimes it's still shaky even with the gimbal. Sometimes you just tremored a little bit. Just film multiple times. It's easier to delete footage than to wish that you had more. When it comes to the rolling shots, now I wish I had a driver for this, but to be honest, I didn't. So first I tried putting the gimbal on the tripod, closing the tripod legs, having it lean on the door, and filming that way. So I was driving, holding the tripod to make sure the camera doesn't fly out the passenger side window, and the footage was definitely a little bit bumpy. And so that's because the tripod was leaning on the door and bouncing. So you can do a couple things to accommodate for that. You can either put a bunch of soft towels and blankets, and that way when it hits the door sill, it doesn't bounce as much, so you have a little bit of shock absorption. Or you can do what I did for the next shots, which is I was driving with my left hand, holding the gimbal out the window like so with my other hand, and had Jonathan basically driving by and did the best we could with the footage. Now, a tip for that, and this is what I've shared in my rolling shots for photos as well, is use your phones. You have Bluetooth in the cars. You have headphones that you can use. So you can either use, your wired Apple earbuds or whatever you got. You can use your AirPods if you have them, and use the headphones to your advantage and be on a phone call. So instead of trying to wave and be like, oh, move over there, do this, you can just be on the phone and tell them, hey, hold the car right there in that spot. This is a perfect shot. 3, 2, 1, take off. And that way you can communicate. So instead of having to read each other's minds and think what looks good, you can just tell them over the phone with your voice. Hey, scoot the car up a little bit. Hey, slow down. Hey, speed up. Hey, in about 3 seconds, I want you to just floor it and make it look really cool. So communication is key, hence why I majored in it in college. Not really. Next thing, speaking of audio, your audio levels need to be manual. So if you have an external recorder like a Zoom H1 or something, make sure you set the levels to turn off from auto, and then you set the levels manually on the side, or on your camera like this Canon SL2, you can set the levels manually as well. Make sure you film a couple clips to test, make sure the audio isn't peaking. Something like the GT3 with the GMG exhaust here, it's gonna clip, it's gonna sound super loud, so you want everything to go down. As you guys can see right here, this will be flashing red if I'm talking too loudly. That means the audio is clipping. So that means we need to turn our input level way down. And now when I'm talking, you'll see that the levels are right there at about 75%. That's where we want them maxed out. So when the car is revving really high, you want it at about 75% audio. You can always turn it up or down a little bit in Final Cut Pro, but you can't do a whole ton. So make sure you do that and bring headphones with you to the shoot. The other thing, if you're gonna be attaching the microphone to the car, have something like a dead cat or some sort of windsock on top of it. Otherwise, the footage is gonna sound way too windy because you have all that air flowing over the back of the car and you're not gonna be able to hear the exhaust well. We were trying to use just the Zoom H1, but I didn't have a windsock for it, and so it sounded horrible. I actually ended up using footage from the built-in microphone on the Canon SL2 for that takeoff shot at the end, and I think it sounds pretty good. And the last things I want to mention are, 1, plan out your shots. So maybe have a song in mind, or at least envision the video in your head of what shots you want. Write them down in an actual list, either on paper, use the Notes app in your phone and cross them off. Make sure you do multiple takes of each one so you have good footage to put together. And also film the quieter, silent, stationary shots first, So then when you do the takeoff and launches and the rolling shots, if you do for whatever reason get kicked out of the neighborhood, or someone calls the police, or the police show up and they're very nice, then you can say, oh, actually, we're done filming. Thank you very much for being so courteous. We appreciate you doing your job. And that's the end of the video. So make sure you are nice and respectful to everybody. Have fun shooting. Make sure to hydrate. Make sure to share the video with me when you film it. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you subscribe. Let me know what cars you want to see on this channel. There's a lot of content coming soon on cars and how to film and photograph cars. So make sure to subscribe. ShouldIGetIt.com is the website. A Car Photographer is the Instagram. And I will see you guys next Tuesday at 10 a.m. for the next car video. Peace.